Welcome to the Spectrum of Health podcast. My name's Jav, and today, guys, we got a very, very special guest from across the pond, Mr. Michael Begg, co-founder of AMZ Advisors and a former athlete. So, firstly, welcome. Thank you for coming to the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me here, Jeff. I really appreciate it, and hopefully my American accent doesn't throw too many people off.
No, I'm sure they're used to it by now. So, we watch enough American TV over here, so yeah, I think everyone's used to it. So, firstly, thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Essentially, you know, just so people are aware, like I'm really trying to connect with as many former athletes who are also kind of moved on from this sport, and not moved on as in not play anymore, but have found other avenues to find their self worth beyond just being an athlete, which I think is a mental battle that we all kind of face, especially those of us that, we played college sports and maybe some people that went professional. So, um, yeah, I guess really what I'd like to do is kind of start from the beginning, because obviously you played lacrosse, right?
Yeah, I played lacrosse.
So, lacrosse is not a big sport in the UK. So, what I'd like to know is, how did you get into it? What was the journey like getting into like college and yeah, that kind of process?
So it was actually where I'm from is kind of a county that's a little bit mixed. There was one side of the county that's like really wealthy, and lacrosse tends to be in areas that are more wealthy. Then there was the area where I lived, which wasn't as wealthy growing up, and the sport was way more popular over there than it was where I grew up. Over years, it started getting more and more popular, and finally, my town started a team. And then from there, I got involved. This was when I was in like seventh grade. So I was like 12, 13 years old when I started playing. From there, it just came like naturally. Literally, I just like picked up a lacrosse stick, and it was the easiest thing in the world for me. I played football, soccer, and basketball and other sports throughout my life. And I wasn't a great athlete in anything, but for some reason, lacrosse just came incredibly naturally. Within 2 years, I was one of the best players in the state. And yeah, I don't know, it changed quickly. It came at me fast. From there, I went and played in high school and secondary. And from my freshman year, I was involved with the varsity team or the senior team. And it was a little frustrating. We made the playoffs, every year I was there. Just that we lost in the semifinals 3 years in a row.
Wow.
So that was brutal. That was pretty crushing. And then from there, I had a couple offers to play in college, and I ended up going to Stony Brook University, which was top 20 at the time.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I know Stony Brook quite well. Okay, so what was that like? Like going to play college soccer? Like, what was like the transition from being a high school athlete to being a college?
I think I remember, like I said, the sport came really naturally to me. Like I'm a little bit of a bigger body, and like, I don't know, I was kind of fast. So I was able to use my body more to like leverage it. So in high school, like I applied myself, but like I didn't have to apply myself in the same way that you do in college.
Right.
When I got to college, I remember coming in like the first practices and how much more physical it was, how much faster all the defenders were. I played a forward, essentially attack, and it was tough. Like I was getting beat up physically a lot. And then from there, I realized, all right, I'm going to have to put in a lot more work to be able to get to a level that, I'm going to be able to compete with these guys.
Yeah.
So it went from like not really having to apply myself or put a ton of effort in to really changing my mentality and being like, oh crap, like if I don't try harder, I'm not going to be able to get into the team.
And a question when I was in America, I always ask my teammates this, my American teammates, because coming from England, when I moved to play college soccer, like in England, when you get to like an elite level of sport, usually you just play the sport. Like you wouldn't continue from an educational standpoint. You pretty much kind of stop doing education. So a big transition for me was having to going back to like classes and stuff like that. So how did you find, I guess it's more natural to the American students, but like how did you find balancing having to make sure you got good grades, GPA's got to be a certain amount, or you can't play. Like when I talk
Yeah.
to my friends in England, they'll be like, "What? You can't play if you don't have good grades?" Like, yeah, that's the system. So how did you feel? Obviously, it's a while ago now, but how did you feel
Yeah.
balancing that while playing?
I,
Was that easy
yeah.
for you, or was it?
No, it wasn't easy. I remember it was incredibly stressful, incredibly tiring. We had on top of this, like our coach was a fitness addict. So I remember the summer training for freshman year, or the summer training every year was you had to run 2 miles in under 12:30, which is a good pace. I mean, it's not like there's people that run faster, but 12:30 is a pretty good pace for 2 miles. And I came in at 12:35. So literally 5 seconds over. I'd been practicing all summer, timing it, and then I missed it by 5 seconds. So my punishment, and all my other teammates that didn't make it, was what he called the 5 a.m. club or 6 a.m. club. We had to wake up at every morning at 6 a.m. and go run a 5 kilometer run with people that didn't do it. So on top of everything else, I had to do that. So we came in, 6 a.m., 5 kilometer run. Classes started at 7:30 for me. I was pretty much falling asleep in my first class every single time. From there, after that first class, I had strength training. So I had to go to the gym and train from there, then have lunch, then back to classes, then afternoon practice. Then after that, it was going back to the study hall, the athlete study hall to study everything. And it was tough. Honestly, like my freshman year, I really didn't even go out or do anything that much on the weekends. I think Saturdays was like the only thing I did anything, the only day I did anything, because the rest of the days during the week were so crammed with things. I was just exhausted every single day.
Yeah, wow. Okay, let's hope the NCAA don't listen to this because I'm not sure that he's allowed to make you do that every day.
I remember that. Yeah, I think during the fall, I remember the rules are different. Yeah. But during the fall, you can do a certain number of days. Strength training, you can do every day. I know.
Yeah.
But it was strength training and conditioning.
Yeah.
So that type of stuff was brutal. But yeah.
Yeah. I will say, yeah, as a coming from another country, I say that's one of the biggest differences between like European sports and coming to America is when I got to America, there was a very big emphasis on the fitness side of things. Whereas in England, there is an emphasis on it, but I think coaches care more about your skill level than how physical you are. Because you get guys who are not really that fit, but from a skill aspect, they just can play the game, like whatever game it may be, they can play a sport so well. So coaches, they want you to be fit so you can get through a game. But like when I got to America, it was like, okay, you can't run. It doesn't matter how good you are with the ball. You got to be fit first. But in my head, that's backwards because I'm like, well, if I'm a better player, the fitness don't really matter because I'm going to get through 90 minutes of soccer anyway. It doesn't matter. But I need to be a good player. So it's very interesting, that mentality switch. Okay, cool. So sticking with college for a second then. Like, how would you say things change for you, like, obviously, freshman year compared to your senior year? Did you play all 4 years?
I played 3 years.
Okay,
I didn't play my senior year.
Okay.
But things changed over time every single year. We went through coaching changes. We made it through. So first year we lost in the conference finals to UMBC, one step away from the NCAA tournament, which would have been amazing. Second year we made the NCAA tournament. And third year, we didn't do as well. So the coach left and some things changed. So I would say that like balancing the schedule got easier over time. The expectations of what I had to do or what I had to achieve or the amount of effort I had to put in were already set after that first year. And from there, it was just a matter of continually trying to improve myself.
Yeah.
And I think the changes are less drastic when you're going year by year. I mean, the expectations are higher because you are more experienced, but make that switch from high school to university is one of the most drastic switches I've ever had to make from an athletic level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And was there any particular reason you didn't play in your last year?
I just kind of got tired of it,
Oh.
to be honest. No, I broke my hip one year and I was having some pain from that. I had a couple concussions and it kind of got to the point where I was like, what am I doing this for? There is professional lacrosse, but and I had a lot of friends that played and still play professional lacrosse. But I kind of realized, I was like, this is not going to be a long-term career thing. And if I can't take care of myself, physically for the long term, it's just going to have, worst health effects down the road. So it's part of the reason that I decided that, I just wasn't going to play my senior year.
Yeah, for sure. Is there much money? Is there much money in professional lacrosse?
It's changed. So when I graduated, there wasn't. They pretty much, I think they, I don't even remember if they paid for your flights,
Wow.
but like you got like a small stipend like every season. I have a really good friend who was an incredible athlete. He was NCAA midfielder of the year that I played with. He still plays professional. And he loves it. I mean, there's an indoor league, there's an outdoor league. He played in both of them. He does coaching on the side. Like, he's just a lacrosse addict. So
Yeah.
for some people, it's not about the money. It was just about doing it. But they've changed the way the league works now. And I think there is more money being paid to the players. I just don't have any idea what it is now.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay, cool. So I guess really the thing I'd like to know about, and I think the most interesting part, is obviously that transition from like graduating and leaving college and no longer being like a full-time athlete, I guess, or a student athlete. Like, what was that transition like for you on a personal level, and like what was the next steps for you beyond that?
I think I went through a lot of different periods where I wasn't sure exactly what I need to be doing, or how I should be taking care of myself physically, or like what I was going to continue to do after this. Like, growing up for so many years playing a sport, you become incredibly competitive. And when you don't have that aspect of competition in your day-to-day life, it kind of is like, well, what am I doing? So I found myself competing against a lot of my teammates, in jobs and roles that I was working in. Being a lacrosse player, I had put on a lot of muscle over the years, and like I didn't see the point anymore. So I was like focused on like, well, maybe I should slim down. Like, maybe there's no point in me being able to, I don't know, power clean, 355. Like, there's like, what am I doing these things for? And I think that was probably the biggest challenge, was adapting to not having a competitive aspect. The only real competition I had was like a pickup soccer league that I played in twice a week, which is fun. I still love playing. I still play soccer today, and lacrosse, but I was missing that competitive level. And I think that was one of the hardest changes, because in the real world, when you're working day to day, you're really only competing against yourself to try to be like the best you can in whatever you're doing. And it's not the same when you've grown up competing against other people your entire life.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. The aspect of, you mentioned about like not sure how to look after yourself or train after college. Yeah. And obviously this is a podcast about health and fitness. So what, in terms of that, like, you don't need to clean and press 315 pounds anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what were you doing from a training aspect? What were some of the things you were trying to at least maintain or do, especially those first few years out of college?
Yeah, the first few years I was like pretty lost. I was mainly just running, because it's another thing I enjoy. I think those 5 a.m. club running sessions got it into my head. That was the main thing I was sticking to. I was going to a gym, doing just some lifting with bars and dumbbells and things like that. I didn't really have like a structure or plan or anything. And then I think it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. One of my partners got me into CrossFit, and from there, CrossFit gave me a lot of that competitive feeling again, and it was something I really enjoyed. So I did CrossFit in total for, I don't know, 8 years.
Wow.
And I still do like those Metcon type workouts because I enjoy them. But yeah, I mean, when you go from not having competition and then kind of that lull to like, oh wait, I can compete against people again, even though it's a completely different aspect, it really, it was really attractive to me. So I really got into that. Instead of the idea of having like, I don't need all this muscle, maybe I should start like, slimming down or whatever. it completely 180'd, and I was just like, all right, well, I'm going to get stronger. And so it just changed everything when I went back into, or when I found CrossFit and then started doing that consistently.
Did you compete? Like, did you do competitions?
Yeah, I mean, I competed in like local competitions. I never made it to regionals or anything like that. But I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's fun going out there, competing against other people, pushing yourself. I mean, there's plenty of times where I thought I was just going to like pass out from going so hard, but it's a different feeling that you don't really get, or it's really hard to get that feeling. I mean, you've had that feeling in college, whether it's, running a beep test or like whatever it may be. You don't really get that frequently after college. Yeah. So that's really why I enjoyed it.
CrossFit scares me, man. That scares me. I think you know what it is I find difficult about CrossFit is that it's a competition, but I don't actually, I'm not like physically up against somebody. Like lacrosse, right? You physically are up against somebody. So
yeah,
I think CrossFit is like, okay, if I'm fit and strong, I can and I know how to do everything, I can win. But there is a competition element to it. But I always find it hard to get competitive because it's down to me. Like, whereas a team sport, we have to have skill. Obviously, there's skill to CrossFit, but I think it's hard for me to get into that mentality. I think that's why it scares me. So I'm like, I don't know if I can do this.
No, I mean, I remember the first day I went and I was like embarrassed at like how little I could lift because I hadn't been lifting for like 2 years. And I, just watching other guys there. I mean, we had a couple of people that were competing in regionals at our gym. So like they were good role models of like how to actually do this or what's possible. And I think that helped a lot, kind of push me and see like, all right, well, like these guys can do this. I can start getting better and better and better. I may not reach their level or not, but it's different. But at the same time, when you get over that initial fear of like, I'm not going to be able to do this or I'm not going to be good enough, it was a lot easier to kind of move into it and be like, all right, well, I'm going to get as good as I can. And that's still going to be better than probably 90% of people out there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So like moving into like the professional world after college, did you already kind of know what you wanted to do? And I guess with a sport like lacrosse, because the professional side of it isn't, I guess, as popular compared to some other sports, was that already something you knew, okay, well, I'm not going to become a professional lacrosse player. So like, did you already know what you wanted to do from a professional aspect once you was kind of out of college and going?
For sure. And I think it came a lot from like my high school experiences. As I said earlier, where I grew up, there was an area that was really wealthy and there was an area that was like pretty average. And a lot of the teams we were competing against were the areas that were really wealthy. And I got a lot of exposure to the types of people there, and they were all investment bankers, private equity, all those types of jobs. And that was really attractive to me. I was like, wow, they have, awesome lives. They live in this great place. They have these nice cars, like whatever it may be. So I was really focused on trying to get into the finance world and investment banking or private equity after school. I didn't. I went and worked in consulting, which is somewhat related and somewhat similar, but it's different type of thing. And I kind of started going down that route. I think the CrossFit and some of the other experiences I had where I was getting more and more exposure to these people that were successful business owners, a lot of people training in CrossFit, it's expensive. They also tend to have money. So I was getting more and more exposure to people that had their own businesses, that were doing their own thing. And I just saw that they had their own schedules. I mean, they could go work out in the middle of the day if they wanted to. They could go work out in the morning, in the afternoon. There was no fixed time for them to do anything in their day. And I started finding that really attractive. And I started wanting to go more and more down that route. I just didn't have an idea to do it at the time. But yeah, it's really where I started thinking more about what I want to be doing in the long run, compared to what I was just thinking out of college, which was, working in investment banking. All my friends that got into investment banking were absolutely miserable with the hours they were working. So I was kind of like, maybe I made a better decision not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And yeah, that's interesting because I think that although I'm sure they make good money doing that as well, sometimes the question is the money worth it? Is it a trade-off, like not being able to manage your own schedule? Is the freedom is sometimes worth more than the money in some aspects, I guess. For some people anyway.
For sure.
I think for me it is because I don't think I would be able to like do like strict hours. I like to wake up and
Yeah,
whenever I
I
want to
mean,
wake up.
when you're just coming out of college, like I had friends that are making like $120,000 or more out of college. And like,
Right.
that's a lot of money when you're young.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I think that's like part of the thing that's super attractive. But yeah, as you get older and you realize that what's more important is like your time and your ability to do things when you want instead of on someone else's schedule. I think the money becomes less valuable. But those people that go into that field are like stuck in it now because they've become so addicted to making that money that they don't really know what else to do.
Mm, And actually, with obviously the premise of this is of what I do is health and fitness. And actually, what I find is that a lot of the guys that I work with who are in those kind of corporate roles or something a bit more strict 9 to 5 based, long hours, they're not able to, I guess, because of their time limitations. Plus, as you get older, you might have a family. They're not able to dedicate much time to themselves, and then that's why they end up on the phone with me in the first place. Is because they're struggling with their weight or other areas, certain things that I won't mention. But like they need that drive again to start looking after themselves physically, and actually, it's almost like restructuring their lifestyles to fit it in to make it a priority. Is a very common thing that I come across. So that kind of leads me to the next part then, which is obviously you are a co-founder and a founder of like a few different businesses. So
Yeah.
how did that start? I guess the first one would be what we introduced you. Is it AMZ? How did that come about? AMZ Advisors.
Yeah, so the first one, AMC, came out of just something I was doing in my career at the time. So after I worked in consulting, I left and I went and worked in real estate development. And I was working for a department store, Sears, here in the US. But Sears is now out of business. So what we were doing at the time was we were selling off a lot of Sears assets. We were redeveloping stores, and there were some deals that came across my plate, which was Amazon trying to buy malls, like old abandoned malls, but we still owned land there. And Amazon was coming in and trying to buy it. And I was like, well, that's weird. Amazon's a website. Why are they trying to buy a mall? And then from there, I started looking into it more and figured out that they are turning the mall into a fulfillment center. So a logistics center where they would actually fulfill orders for customers. And that started getting me more and more interested. And myself, my two partners I have now, we started learning more about Amazon e-commerce, that you could sell products on Amazon, that it wasn't just about books or whatever else it was back then. And we started selling products. We first started buying stuff. It's called retail arbitrage, buying stuff from like Walmart on clearance and then going online and selling it on Amazon. Then we started importing products from China. And one of the product categories we were importing was like art supplies. And I'm not sure how it is in the UK, but in the US, Crayola is the biggest art supply brand.
Yeah, we've got Crayola.
And we were competing. Yeah, it's the same. Okay. And we were competing against Crayola and we were beating them. We were selling more than them in a lot of categories. There were some where we couldn't compete, but others where we could. And then we realized that a lot of these larger companies don't know what they're doing with Amazon and e-commerce. And we saw an opportunity there to take what our strength was, which was the marketing and sales aspect, and then go and help them. So we started an agency that actually provides marketing services to brands. That was the first company. There's been a bunch of other ones along the way. But that's kind of how we came up with the idea. That's how it got me from a corporate job into entrepreneurship. And then from there, there's just so many interesting things that come out of it once you get into this world and so once you start seeing what's going on.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. So when you made that switch and you started helping other companies to utilize Amazon, what were, and you don't have to give all your secrets away, but what were some of the strategies you were using to actually get clients, I guess?
Well, to get clients, in the beginning, we relied a lot on platforms. So platforms like Upwork, it was called Odesk back in the day, Freelancer. We were getting a lot of jobs through those. And we had a couple partners that were working with these big companies on the marketing side, but had no idea what they were doing on Amazon. So they needed the help. And that helped us get a lot of clients to get going. And while we were starting the company at the same time, we put a big effort on SEO. So we really started building out the website, creating a lot of blog content. I was writing 2 or 3 blogs a week, which was exhausting at the time, but the payoff has been huge because we get I think it's like 52 or 53,000 unique visitors to the website a month now. So
Wow.
from that, we're able to start, really creating a system to bring leads to us. And that's really what made the big shift. So it started early with just using platforms and outbound email marketing, stuff like that. And then over time, it's graduated more and more towards creating the visibility and the brand awareness for people to come to us looking for help. And then that's much more sustainable in the long run than it is going out and trying to find people.
Yeah, of course. I agree. And with that, then you mentioned, there were some businesses that came and went in that time frame, right?
Yeah.
So how would you say that, like, or would you say that your time as an athlete, that competitiveness, that dealing with wins and losses, would you say that had an influence or at least an effect on the way that you handle positivity and negativity in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I would say definitely. From the negativity side, I think as an athlete, you kind of learn that things are not always going to go your way, that the best you can do is keep trying, that you can't give up every time something doesn't go your way. And I think that helps a lot. On the positive side and the competition side, you tend to benchmark yourself against other companies and what other companies are doing a lot, which helps in a way. It does motivate you to keep going and learn what they're doing and what's working for them and what you should be doing. It also can make it frustrating sometimes, though, when you're not growing as fast as you want or you're not achieving the same results. But yeah, definitely the experience as an athlete does have a lot of similarities to being an entrepreneur or a business owner. I think it's actually led to a lot of the us starting some of these other companies, in that we saw an opportunity or we saw a gap and we were like, we are going to be the best company doing this, whatever it may be. And from there, we just started growing the company out, and it's worked. There's been other instances where we didn't go in with that right mentality, and we were like, this seems like it could make money, and we try it and then it fails. So it's really about finding the right opportunities, using that competitive nature to like focus on growing something that's going to be the best, and then actually going and doing it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so and with that, obviously, you have two other companies that you co-founded. One called Magnified. Is that how I pronounce it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
that's it.
Kind of talk to me a little bit about how that came about in your journey.
So this actually came about during the pandemic. So I live in Mexico. My two other partners, one lives in Connecticut, one other lives in Mexico, and the other one living in Mexico was living in Playa del Carmen near Cancun. And during the pandemic, he met this British guy, Rob Harrison. Ended up making friends with him. He's former Royal Marines and worked on, I think, aircraft carriers or something like that. Ended up, when he got out, moving to Mexico, met his wife, who he's married to now, and was kind of looking for something to do. So he was working for another company, helping fitness coaches and other types of coaches sell more products or sell more of their services. And he was building out this entire business, and like, this Rob is an amazing guy. He's like probably one of the most dedicated and motivated guys I've ever seen. He will run through a brick wall to get something done. But he was doing all of this for someone else and then didn't have any ownership in the company. And it felt like he was kind of being taken advantage of. So the idea just started coming about, like, well, what if we help you start something like this? And he was thrilled about it. So, we've started building out that company. It's the same similar idea where we partner with largely fitness coaches, but other coaches, and help them sell more. So typically these fitness coaches have a big following, or they're really good at creating content, or they're really good at helping their clients, but they're not that great at doing sales. And that's exactly where we step in. They send us the leads or the opportunities coming to them, and we just get the deals over the line for them. So we take some people from closing at 10% to 53%, or other fitness coaches from doing $10,000 a month in sales to $120,000 a month in sales.
Right. Okay. So you do all their sales for them, essentially.
Yeah. We
Okay.
close all the deals for them.
Yeah.
So that's like one of our favorite things. It's exciting for us because we love selling. And every single time we see a sale come through, we're pumped for our clients, but we're also pumped because we're doing such a great job.
Yeah. Okay. And do you help them at all with the lead generation side, or is that down to them?
We have some partners that help them on the lead generation side. Most of the time, they already have their channels or the platforms that they're already publishing content on and have the leads coming in. And those are typically the ones that see the most success. I mean, if you're still a little bit early and don't have a ton of lead, a ton of traffic or a ton of leads coming in, we can still help you. We can still close deals for you, but it's a little bit easier for us to learn faster on what's working on closing deals and what's not, and adjust our strategy to make sure that we're closing as many as possible.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, wow. And with that then, and how many do you have on the team for that? Like, as in, obviously there's you, there's Rob. You said there's one other person?
Oh, no, there's a lot of other people.
Okay.
Our team is about 15 right now.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So staying in your athlete element there, because it's all about having a strong team, right?
It is.
And
that's another thing. It's like, it's a big difference I noticed between my wife, who competed as well. She's Mexican. She competed in swimming at like the national level, but swimming's an individual sport. So she has a very much different mentality when it comes to that. And like, I competed in team sports my entire life, and I'm always focused on building the right team. So it's really interesting seeing the sport you played and how it actually impacts things in the long run.
Yeah. And it is a different mindset, because I've recently, over the last 18 months, I've been doing Muay Thai and kickboxing. And I love it because actually I don't have to rely on anybody else to get through a game or a match. I know that it's down to me. Or if I've got a sparring session with another fighter, it's just me versus them. Like, I can't say, oh, he didn't pass me the ball or he didn't give me an assist. It's literally, if I lose, I lose, which is good. I like that element, but I do like having a team, because if you're failing, you got someone to back you up. So
exactly.
That is a good element.
No, exactly. Okay. That's a huge thing. And my wife also did MMA. So like, she completely sticks to that road, and like, I completely stick to the team sports.
Wow. Okay. She sounds exciting. Wow.
Yeah, she is.
So there was one more. I did my research before we got on this call, and you had another company that you co-founded called Go Advance.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that came about.
Sure. So being here in Mexico, I kind of learned over time that the variety of products that we have to purchase on Amazon or other platforms is pretty limited. So for example, the majority of purchases I make, especially for like supplements, my wife's cosmetics, or like those types of things, they all come from the US. So the problem was, how can we create a better variety of products for the consumer to be able to purchase, and why are their brands not coming in here? And we figured out that brands were not coming in because it was so difficult to deal with Mexican law and the language differences and all of those types of things. And the solution for us was creating Go Advance. We figured out that we could essentially be the distributor for these brands in Mexico, help them with all of their legal representation, all their compliance, fiscal, all those types of things. So what we do is we partner with brands from the US and also from the UK and Europe that want to get into Latin America, starting with Mexico. We'll do the importation, we'll sell the products for them and leverage our marketing experience on the AMZ side. We just take a fee from it. And that is more or less what we're focused on. I mean, we're focused on Mexico right now, but in the long term, we want to get into Colombia and Brazil. And we also want to help brands get into retail distribution in Mexico and these countries. So we're building out a lot of different aspects of the business right now, but the idea being that there's a massive opportunity for foreign brands that can get into Mexico. It's just that there is so many hurdles to do it that most of them avoid it.
Wow. Okay. So if someone does have a big brand, they can kind of connect with you and they could potentially get their product sold in Mexico right now, and you'll handle all the logistics of it.
Exactly. We do everything for them. I mean, as us starting a business here, it took about 11 months, which is crazy to think about compared to starting a business in the US or even UK. And with working with us, we can get them up and selling in Mexico in less than a month.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. And do you feel like, also you have a good understanding of the South American market. Do you feel like that's something that is going to really grow and expand in terms of having that accessibility to more products. Because the reason I asked that question is not recently, maybe over the last year, I was listening to something about a guy talking about expanding his Airbnb business and starting to try and open more things in Colombia and Mexico. And he was saying that, you know, these are the next couple of markets that are really going to explode. That was for Airbnb, completely different. But he was forecasting that it's going to get really busy. So if you can get property and maybe start doing it now, like now's a good time. And that maybe a year ago I listened to that. So would you say that, also you can't predict, but would you say that something similar in terms of products and e-commerce is really going to start growing over there in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of correlations between it, actually. So when you look at people interested in Mexico, in Colombia and other places in Latin America or anywhere in the world, really, a lot of it's coming out of like some of this cost of living crisis that we're pretty much having in the US. I know you guys are having it in the UK as well. People are looking for things that are going to give them a better quality of life at a lower cost. And that means more and more foreigners are moving to other countries, which means that more and more expectations of what e-commerce is like back home, they want in Mexico or, you know, whatever place it may be. And at the same time, you know, Latin America as a whole is growing really quickly. There's actually a study that came out a few days ago saying that in 2022, the only region that experienced a growth in wealth was Latin America, and it grew by about 20%. Every other region around the world decreased. So when you look at pretty much everything happening, all the dynamics happening, people getting more wealthy, the middle class growing down here, more expectations for e-commerce. I mean, the three fastest e-commerce marketplaces in the world are three of the fastest e-commerce marketplaces in the world are Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. So there's all of these massive things that are saying like, this is coming. And that's exactly the wave that we're trying to ride by helping the brands, you know, also take advantage of it and really start building consumer bases in all these countries.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Okay. And I have to ask you though, like for me, managing two coaching businesses is hard enough. So how are you managing three different businesses?
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And I would say having the right partners helps a lot. Like, for example, with Magnified, having Rob as a partner is incredible. He's a workhorse. You can rely on him when you need to. We obviously are all there to support him as well. And a lot of it comes down to having the right teams as well. So, for example, we have about 15 employees for Magnified. We have about 50-something employees, 52, I think, right now for AMZ. And then the Go Advance company has 3 or 4 right now. So it's a smaller company. But it really takes a good team that complements your strengths to be able to manage all of that. So my strength is, for example, strategy, planning, and marketing. I have a partner whose strength is sales, apart from Rob, who's another amazing sales guy. And then another partner who's good at operations, another partner who's also good at people management. So, and another one that's really good at e-commerce. So it's really about complementing what all of our strengths are, and making up for each other's weaknesses. That really helps us make sure that everything is growing in the right direction. It definitely is not easy, and sometimes it can be pretty stressful managing everything at the same time. But we know that once we get to a certain point, we'll be able to make more key hires that will be able to take more off our plate. And that's really what our goal is like, how do we get to the point where we can bring in, an operations director or a sales manager or someone that can really lead a lot of these aspects for us that are taking more of our time now.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing, obviously I don't run three companies, but I always think the hardest thing growing one company for me was that delegation element, like being willing to let go of certain aspects, because you can't do everything. And I think for me, that was the hardest part. Even just running a coaching business, delegating to an assistant coach or something like that. And I'm like, oh, what if they don't do it right? And stuff like that. But you kind of have to let that go, or else you'll never be able to grow your coaching business. So you run 3 businesses, right? You're involved in 3 businesses. And I get a lot, just to as we kind of wrap this up, just from a coaching element. Obviously this podcast is revolving around health, fitness, and so on and so forth. How do you, with 3 businesses and a partner in a different country as well, how do you manage to find time to, make sure you're getting to the gym, looking after yourself physically? Like, what is your routine like at the moment? How has that changed with moving, with growing multiple companies? Like, what does that look like for you?
It's changed a lot, and it still changes every year. For a while, like I think it was last year, I was very big on early gym. I was going to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. After a while, I kind of got tired of that, and I was like, I'm going to go to the gym in the afternoon. It's tough to balance the time, but it's really important to schedule it in. So, for example, I know every day after I go to lunch, I'm going to go to the gym in the afternoon and work out. And I pretty much have to block off 2 hours for me in the afternoon. If it means I have to come home at night and work after that, I'll have to work. Or if I need to wake up a little earlier to get something done, I need to do it. So I think that when it comes to finding the time, the first key is obviously setting a set time period apart for you to do it. And then making sure that you are not coming up with, I don't want to say excuses, but other reasons to do something during that time. Like for me, it's really easy to book a call during that time, but I need to try to prevent myself from doing it as much as possible. So I block off my calendar during that time. I turn off, I mute all the messages on my apps, all my work apps while I'm there. So I think those are kind of the keys to be able to do it. Eliminate the distractions, and then make sure that you have a set period during the day that you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah. My clients who listen to this, they're probably going to think that I told you to say that, because that's exactly what I say to them. I say to them, look, on your calendar, if you block it out like you do a Zoom meeting, it's almost like you can't miss it, because you treat it with that same level of importance. So exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So if you're listening, make sure you take note. Okay, cool, man. Well, yeah, man, I really appreciate your time. I always like to leave every podcast with this one question to my guest. And the question is, if you were able to talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to them? What would be the best piece of advice that you would give to your 18-year-old self?
From business or health standpoint, or both?
Anything.
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give to myself, just because I was so focused in that team aspect, is to be more adventurous and try new things. It's very easy to go along with what everyone else in the team is doing. But at the same time, you don't really learn about yourself and what you want if you're not trying new things. And I think it took me a while to learn that, even after school, after university, it took me a while to learn that. So I think knowing that sooner probably would have helped me get started being an entrepreneur a lot earlier, and probably made me a lot more successful in the long run.
I like that. Try new things. That's important. I can definitely relate to that. Okay, cool, man. Well, firstly, I want to thank you. I really do appreciate your time. If there are coaches and people that want to reach out to you, maybe people who have products, where is the best place for them to find you? Is it LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook? Where can we find you? And I will also leave your details in the description. But where's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, the two best places are my email directly, mike@amzadvisors.com, and my LinkedIn profile. I believe it's Michael Begg on LinkedIn, but I go by Mike. So cool. Either one's a good place to reach me.
Perfect. Well, if you are listening and you maybe you've got a team and you want someone to bring your sales conversion rates up to 40-50%, make sure you reach out. And if you've got products and you're a big company, also make sure you reach out. I will leave Mike's details in the description. But yeah, thank you again. It's the Spectrum of Health podcast. Before you guys leave, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you do like the podcast, donate a coffee. All you got to do is press that buy me a coffee link, and it'll get me a nice coffee. So thank you, Mike, for showing up. We'll speak again soon.
I really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Spectrum of Health podcast. Goodbye.